My name is Gladys A. Warner, and I am 30 years old. 3 days ago, my boyfriend looked me in the eye and told me I did not own him. He was right. That was why I left. It happened on a Friday night at Murphy's, the neighborhood bar where our group usually met after work. Ethan sat beside me, his friend Rachel across from us, and my closest friend Melissa near the end of the table. Nothing about the evening seemed unusual at first. We ordered wings, shared fries, and complained about work. Then Ethan went to the bar for another round. I watched him because lately I had started watching. He leaned across the counter toward the bartender, a tall woman named Taylor. She laughed at everything he said, and Ethan touched her wrist while she entered something into his phone. When he returned, he was smiling at the screen. "New friend?" I asked casually. He did not look up. "Just the bartender." "What's her name?" His eyes lifted immediately. "Why?" "Because you were talking to her." "Taylor, why does it matter?" Melissa suddenly became fascinated by her drink. Rachel stared down at the table. "It doesn't," I said. "I was only asking." Ethan's voice grew louder. "Oh my God, here we go." People at the next table glanced over. "What exactly is happening?" I asked. "You're doing that controlling thing where you ask questions like you're my mother." I asked her name. "We're not married, Gladys. You don't own me. I can talk to whoever I want." "I never said you couldn't." He took a long drink. "And I can give my number to whoever I want." The table went silent. "You gave Taylor your number?" Ethan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Yes, because we're dating. We're not married. You don't get to decide who I talk to." Rachel tried to interrupt. "Maybe everyone should calm down." But Ethan was enjoying the audience. "I'm tired of Gladys acting like we're married whenever it suits her," he continued. "Then when I talk about needing space, she acts hurt." The lie was almost impressive. I had been the one asking about our future. Ethan was the one who said labels felt restrictive and commitment created pressure. Yet when his rent was short, we were serious. When his car needed repairs, we were a team. When he needed someone to watch his dog, cover groceries, or pay the internet bill, suddenly our relationship was permanent enough. I finished my drink and placed the glass down carefully. "You're right." Ethan blinked. "What?" "We're not married. You can do whatever you want." I stood. "I'm going home." "You're seriously leaving because I talked to a bartender?" "I'm leaving because I'm tired." I placed money on the table and walked out. My hands shook when I reached the parking lot. It was not only Taylor. 2 weeks earlier, Ethan forgot dinner plans because he went drinking with coworkers. The previous weekend, he posted a story from a woman's apartment at 2 in the morning and called me paranoid when I asked about it. He wanted freedom from accountability and all the benefits of commitment. I drove home to the apartment we had shared for 8 months. Ethan texted the group chat that he was going to Club Vibe. I looked around the living room. The couch was mine. The television, bookshelf, coffee table, gaming console, lamps, and rugs were mine. I paid 60% of the rent and every utility. At 10:47, I called Melissa. "I need a favor." She arrived with her truck before midnight. "What are we doing?" she asked. "I'm moving out." "Tonight?" "He said we aren't married." I looked around the apartment. "So I'm untangling us." We carried out the couch, television, bookshelves, clothes, bedding, towels, coffee maker, knives, cookware, and everything else I had purchased before or during the relationship. I left Ethan's furniture and belongings untouched. By 1:40 in the morning, the apartment looked hollow. I transferred the utility information and gave him 1 week to place the accounts in his name. Then I stood at the empty kitchen counter and wrote a note. The first version was angry. I tore it up. The second was too long. I tried once more. "You're right. I don't." I placed my key on top. Melissa and I left at 1:43. At 3:17, Ethan called. Then he texted, "Where are you? What did you do? Did you seriously take the couch?" I turned my phone face down. He wanted freedom from commitment. By morning, he would finally understand what that freedom cost. Ethan's call started at 3:17 in the morning. By then, I was sitting on Melissa's couch with a beer in my hand, staring at the ceiling while my phone vibrated across the coffee table. His first messages were pure anger. "What the hell did you do? Where is the TV? Did you seriously take the coffee maker?" Then came confusion. "I don't understand. You can't just move out. This is our apartment." Melissa walked out of the hallway, glanced at the screen, and handed me another beer. "He figured it out. Apparently. You going to answer?" "No." She nodded as though that was the only reasonable decision. My phone lit up again. "This is so immature. We need to talk. You left me with nothing." That message almost made me laugh. I had not left him with nothing. I had left him with everything he owned. The half-empty apartment only looked like nothing because most of the life inside it had belonged to me. The group chat exploded next. Rachel wrote, "What did you do? Ethan is freaking out." Another friend asked whether we had broken up. Melissa finally replied, "Gladys moved out. Maybe ask Ethan why." Rachel responded immediately, "She abandoned him in the middle of the night like a coward." Melissa typed back, "He was at a club after giving another woman his number in front of her." I muted the entire conversation. Around 7, I showered and borrowed Melissa's hairbrush. When I checked my phone again, there were 47 notifications. Ethan had moved through every emotion imaginable. Anger at 3, confusion at 4, bargaining by 5, desperation by sunrise. "Please answer. I didn't mean it. We can fix this. You're scaring me." Melissa made coffee and sat across from me. "Want to talk now?" Once I started, everything came out. The forgotten anniversary, the nights he disappeared without answering, the way he called me controlling whenever I asked basic questions, the money, most of the rent, all the utilities, groceries, dates, car repairs. When he needed something, I said, we were practically married. When I needed respect, suddenly we were only dating. Melissa shook her head. "He told Rachel you liked taking care of him." I stared at her. "He said that?" "He said you were happy with the arrangement." A laugh escaped me, but it sounded hollow. An unknown number called. I answered because I already knew who it was. "You cannot block me," Ethan said immediately. His voice was rough from crying or shouting. "We need to talk." "About what?" "You leaving, taking everything." "I took my belongings." "You took the couch." "My couch." "We shared it." "You used it. That is different." Silence. Then his voice softened. "I was drunk. I said something stupid." "You gave your number to another woman." "It was not like that." "What was it like?" He had no answer. Finally, he asked to meet in person. Every sensible part of me wanted to refuse, but another part remembered 3 years of birthdays, holidays, and ordinary mornings. I agreed to one conversation at a coffee shop near his office. Ethan was already there when I arrived. He looked exhausted. No styling in his hair, yesterday's shirt, dark shadows beneath his eyes. I ordered black coffee and sat across from him. "I don't understand why you left without talking to me," he began. "You were at the club. You could have waited." "So you could tell me I was overreacting?" He flinched. "I did not mean to embarrass you." "You said I did not own you in front of everyone." "You were interrogating me." "I asked the bartender's name." It felt controlling.
Because you gave her your number.
He looked down at his drink. So what if I did? We are not married. There it was again. Exactly, I said. That is why I left. His eyes filled with tears. You are throwing away 3 years over one mistake. This was not one mistake. I leaned forward. When is my birthday? He stared at me. July? August 12th. I am bad with dates. What is my middle name? His mouth opened. Nothing came out. What am I allergic to? Gladys, stop. What is my mother's name? Tears rolled down his face. I lowered my voice. You do not know me. You know the version of me that pays, fixes things, and asks for very little. That is not true. I love you. Do you love me, or do you love having me around? He could not answer. I finished my coffee and stood. You wanted every benefit of commitment without accepting any responsibility for it. So that is it? You checked out months ago, I said. I finally caught up. He reached toward my hand. I pulled it back. I want someone who is sure about me. Then I left him sitting alone at the table. For the first time, I understood that the half-empty apartment was not the real consequence. Losing access to me was. 3 weeks later, I was fully moved into a small studio apartment across town. It was not impressive. The kitchen was barely large enough for one person, the bathroom fan sounded like an airplane engine, and the bedroom was technically just one corner separated by a half wall. But it was mine. My couch fit perfectly against the far wall. The television sat on the entertainment center Melissa and I had carried down 3 flights of stairs. The coffee maker occupied the counter, like a tiny monument to independence. For the first time in months, I slept without wondering when Ethan would come home, or whether asking where he had been would trigger another argument. I worked out again. I cooked instead of ordering whatever he wanted. I started saving money almost immediately because I was no longer covering most of someone else's life. Ethan continued texting from different numbers. At first, he asked for another chance. Then he asked whether I could still pay part of the rent until the lease ended. When I refused, he accused me of deliberately trying to ruin him. I sent him one screenshot of the lease agreement, showing that we were individually responsible for our own portions. He stopped asking after that. The utilities were transferred into his name before my cancellation deadline. Apparently, he had complained to everyone that I was abandoning him with bills he could not afford. That was the first time many of our friends realized how much I had been paying. Some apologized. Others stayed loyal to Ethan's version of the story. Rachel was the loudest. She told Melissa that I had blindsided him and refused to work on the relationship. I tried for months, I said when Melissa repeated it. He only wanted to work on things after the couch disappeared. Melissa laughed. You should put that on a shirt. One evening, she came over with pizza and beer. We sat on the floor because my small dining table had not arrived yet. Do you miss him? She asked during a commercial. I thought carefully before answering. I miss who I believed he was. That is not the same thing. No. I miss the early version of us, the late-night conversations, the cheap dinners when we were both starting out. The man who used to ask about my day before he began treating my attention like an obligation. But I did not miss the real Ethan from the last year. The one who forgot important dates, disappeared until morning, and called me controlling whenever I noticed the relationship becoming one-sided. A month after I moved out, I heard that Ethan had started dating Taylor, the bartender. They lasted 3 weeks. According to a chain of gossip that traveled from Rachel to another friend and eventually reached Melissa, Taylor ended things because Ethan was too much drama. I laughed for several minutes when I heard that. Not because I wanted him miserable, because the woman he had used to demonstrate his freedom had discovered exactly why I left. Without my financial support, Ethan could not keep the apartment. He moved back in with his parents before the lease ended. He blamed me publicly, claiming I had trapped him into a lifestyle he could not sustain. The truth was simpler. He had enjoyed a lifestyle I sustained. There was a difference. 2 months after the breakup, I attended a mutual friend's birthday party. I almost skipped it, but Melissa convinced me I had already surrendered enough spaces to Ethan. He arrived with someone new, tall, attractive, and carrying a microphone case because, apparently, he hosted a podcast about craft beer. Ethan noticed me across the room. His expression changed in quick succession. Surprise, anger, then something that almost looked like regret. I nodded politely. He nodded back. His new boyfriend did not notice because he was explaining audio equipment to someone trapped beside the snack table. Melissa appeared at my shoulder with a drink. "You okay?" I looked at Ethan, laughing too loudly at something his date said. "Yeah." "You look lighter." "I feel lighter." She smiled. "That is what happens when you stop carrying dead weight." I expected seeing Ethan with someone else to hurt. It did not. I realized then that I was not jealous because I no longer wanted the position his new partner occupied. I did not envy anyone who still had to discover the rules. Ethan wanted devotion when he needed help and freedom when anyone expected accountability. He wanted someone close enough to rescue him, but distant enough not to question him. That was not love. It was convenience. I left the party early, returned to my studio, and made coffee even though it was almost midnight. Then I stepped onto the small balcony and looked over the quiet street below. For the first time, I did not feel guilty about the way I left. The half-empty rooms had not been revenge. They had simply revealed how much of that shared life had been built by me. And once I stopped providing the structure, there was almost nothing left standing. 2 months after I moved into the studio, my life had settled into something I barely recognized. Quiet. Not lonely. Not empty. Quiet. There was a difference. I woke up without checking whether Ethan had come home. I bought groceries without calculating which items he would complain about. I planned weekends without wondering whether he would cancel at the last minute because someone more exciting had invited him somewhere. The balcony became my favorite place. Every morning I carried a mug of coffee outside and watched the city wake up. Cars moved through the streets below. Windows brightened one by one. Nobody expected anything from me. That freedom felt strange at first. Then it felt necessary. I started dating again, though I kept everything casual. A man from work named Daniel asked me to get drinks after a project meeting. I almost declined. The idea of sitting across from someone new and explaining myself sounded exhausting. But I said yes. Daniel arrived early, asked about my family, remembered small details, and did not spend half the night staring at his phone. When the bill came, he picked it up before I could reach for my wallet. "We can split it," I said. "I invited you," he replied. "You can get the next one." There was going to be a next one. That simple possibility felt good. Not dramatic, not consuming, just good. A few weeks later, I saw Ethan again at another mutual friends gathering. He was alone this time. The podcast boyfriend was gone. Ethan stood near the kitchen holding a drink, pretending not to watch me. I could feel his eyes following Daniel as he handed me a plate and asked whether I wanted anything else. Eventually, Ethan approached while Daniel was speaking to someone across the room. "You look happy," he said. "I am." His face tightened slightly. "I heard you're seeing someone." "I am." That was fast. I almost laughed. "You gave your number to another woman while we were still together." That was different. "It always is when you do it." He looked down at his glass. For 1 second, the arrogance disappeared. "I made mistakes," he said. "I know that now." I waited. I didn't understand how much you were doing, he continued. The apartment, the bills, everything. There it was. Not how much I loved him, how much I provided. I figured that out, I said. He looked toward Daniel. Is he better than me? That is not the point.
Then what is?
He is interested in who I am, not what I can make easier for him. Ethan flinched. I did love you. I believe you loved the life we had. That is unfair. No, it is honest. He took a step closer. Could we ever try again? The question did not hurt. That surprised me. Months earlier, I might have imagined this moment as proof that leaving had worked. Ethan regretting everything. Ethan finally seeing my value. But standing there, I understood something important. I did not want his regret. I wanted my peace. No, I said. His expression fell. Just like that? It was not just like that. It took months of being ignored, used, and blamed before I finally left. He looked away. Daniel returned and stood beside me. I introduced them politely. Ethan shook his hand, muttered something about getting another drink, and disappeared into the crowd. Daniel watched him leave.
X?
Yes. You okay? I am. And I meant it. Later that night, Daniel and I walked back to my apartment. He did not question me about Ethan or demand reassurance. He trusted that the past was finished because I said it was. That trust felt different from the silence Ethan used to demand. Real trust did not require blindness. It required consistency. The final loose end came a month later, when Ethan emailed me about the old lease. He said he still believed I handled the breakup cruelly, but admitted he had taken me for granted and treated commitment like something he could switch on whenever he needed help. He apologized. I read the message once. Then I deleted it. Not because the apology was meaningless, because it arrived too late to change anything. My life had already moved forward. The couch sat against the wall of my studio. The coffee maker worked every morning. Daniel's favorite mug had started appearing beside mine. I no longer felt guilty for taking what belonged to me. The furniture, the money, the future. Most importantly, my dignity. Ethan had been right that night at Murphy's. We were not married. I did not own him. But he did not own my loyalty, my labor, my money, or unlimited access to my life. Walking away was not revenge. It was the first honest decision I had made in months. Sometimes the person you save by leaving is yourself. And sometimes that is not selfish. It is survival.